here to discuss all things NRL and anything sports related. Please give a warm Aussie g'day to the footy fanatic and America's own Corey Jackson in Outside the Sheds.
Greetings and salutations and welcome back to Outside the Sheds. Shedheads, I don't know if you have one of those devices in your house where you can check your blood pressure, but it's important. And I'm telling you all right now, if you don't have one, please get one soon. Because our blood pressure is about ready to go through the roof. With 6 weeks to go in the season, we've got 4 points separating 5th through 9th place. To say we've got smash-up derby cars or downtown demolition, whatever you want to say, it is here, it is right now. Let me say that one more time. We have 6 rounds to go. Round 22 is getting ready to kick off this weekend. Round 21 did not, it did not make us dislike the game anymore. But I want you guys to check your blood pressure. And I want you to check it regularly because I just did that in my hot yoga class. We've been talking about this the last month, few weeks, whatever. And I got up to 153 yesterday. And I was breathing heavy. But I think I might have passed it this last weekend watching the Chooks and the Knights. Just saying, have the device on hand. I'm lucky. I know some of you may be as well at home. I've got Mrs. Shedadamus. And unfortunately for me, she will probably find me in a comatose state one day when she comes into the living room, when she comes out of the bedroom, because I'm up at 4 o'clock in the morning watching these matches, and she's getting her beauty sleep, and that's why she looks way better than I do. But what I'm saying is I have a medical professional in the house that won't find me until it's too late because I'm up way too late and my blood pressure's through the roof. Okay? What a way to start the show, but I'm looking out for you, Shedheads, because we're in this together. Unlike maybe the West Tigers at current moments, but we'll talk about that here shortly. So we've got to get on board. We got to be on this together. We got to look out for one another, and we've got to pace ourselves because this is going to get through the roof. We just had the Broncos fall off, which we're going to again talk about here in a second. We're starting to lose people 1 week at a time. So we've got to come together. We've got to circle the wagons, but we've got to check our blood pressure. So with that being said, 5 for 8 last week for round 21, 82 of 126 for the season, so we're at 65%. Picks are still going well. I don't owe anybody the house yet, but we're holding it together. I was really worried there for a while because we didn't start off the first few games that well, as you can check if you're following my picks. But we rallied, we got it together, and Cronulla putting a deep 6 charge on the northern beaches helped me out right there because that kind of got me over the top. But I digress. Before I just got done having a little hit. I told you I'd put the Monster away. Been doing C4 and a few other things. Well, I got a can of Monster sitting in front of me right now. So we're feeling good. So let's dive into this. Round 21. Let's go back. Let's do a little Bill and Ted. Let's go back. Panthers versus the Eels. Battle of the West, kicking off round 21. I'm telling you, the Eels took the fight to the Panthers right out of the gate. It was, what do you expect, though? For whatever reason, I don't know if it's the system or what, but Parramatta has a way of just disrupting Penrith. And it doesn't always all the way follow through to the end, but they just make it very, very difficult. That's why it's the Battle of the West. They go up 12-0 over the Panthers. But the Panthers come out of the sheds in the second half, remembering who they are, and slowly walk them down, and then come over the top, with that 24-18 score. But the Battle of the West is something special. I got to be in the middle of it because Dom, my brother from another mother, and his whole family are kind of separated. Some of them are between Parramatta and Penrith, so I got to see a little bitterness towards each. Bitterness with love, though. Bitterness with love. But Panthers, I got to say this. They're not as dominating as they were earlier in the revenge tour, but they're still getting it done. And I think all of us knew, and I think I talked about this last week, it's tough. These big clubs come out of state of origin, and Cleary was riding a high. I'm expecting them to put the foot down, but they've got a tough match against the Raiders in Mudgee coming up this weekend, so it doesn't get any easier for them. But they get the chocolates. They play well. And what do we say about the Eels? Riles is trying to get this thing together, but his team plays hard for him. You got to say that. Just not getting the victories the way that I think they were hoping to, but the injuries have just decimated that club at different times. So strong showing, I would say, but just not going over the top, and the Panthers get the victory. Roosters 23, Knights 22. I tell you, the Chooks got a hard-fought victory in this one. This game had it all. I said, last episode that this one could be the match of the round. It kind of lived up to it. But I'm going to say something right now, and we're going to talk in more detail when we do a breakdown of this round. But that was tough. That was tough to watch. And to be honest with you, Tedesco stood on his head to get the Chooks across the line, getting the hat trick. But if Dylan Lucas and Dylan Brown don't go down, do the Knights find a way to win that game? DCE slotting in the end, getting that 1-point field goal. But I got to tell you, the Chooks are another team. They're sitting in second right now. And you got to feel for the Knights. We're going to talk about them here in a second. But do they really feel like a number 2 team that is just dominating, that just feels strong, like you're not worried about them against anybody else? I don't feel that way about them. But I do feel for the Knights, man. I feel for that team. They had so much going for them. We're going to talk about them here in a second, but that is huge, and I don't know how you come back over the top of that one. But we'll break it down here in a second. Rabbitohs 28, Storm 26, in a must-win game for both sides. And, we love that, don't we? We love it when everything goes on the line. The Bunnies come back from an 8-point deficit, and they just somehow find a way. I don't know, as I watched that match, if I knew who was going to come out on top of it. It was really strange. Harry Grant going down with that hamstring strain was tough. This might be the first time I've ever watched or had a season watching the Melbourne Storm when week after week something just breaks wrong for them. They've lost, 2 of their best players to Achilles injuries. Money's not playing right now. Hughes is kind of taped together right now. Harry Grant's out for a while now. It's really bad. And I think in his entire career, Bellyache's been through a lot. And I don't know if he's ever been through a season like this, where he just can't get a foothold. And this is probably going to cost that we're not going to see the Melbourne Storm in the finals, which is just strange to talk about or even to mention that. But, the Rabbitohs find a way to do it. They found a way to get over the top. Not pretty. Especially with word coming out more and more that we might not see Latrell for the whole rest of this season. But, they did get the victory. They do get it done. But it's, again, another club you're not feeling fully confident. And I'd be worried. If I'm a South Sydney fan, I'd be worried about this team holding on all the way. The Hectic Cheese going down again with another, a calf injury as well. He just hasn't been able to stay on the field this year. And he was starting to play some really good footy and round into shape. Great victory again. They needed it for the Rabbitohs, but you just wonder how much they have left in the tank. These guys just keep going down. So it's going to be fun to watch them. Raiders 56, Tigers 10, with the Adam Doueihi cloud sitting on top of the Tigers. They had no chance. They had no chance whatsoever. The Green Machine is rolling now. They're in 5th gear, and it's a loud car too. It's just, it's probably got fires, some flames coming out of the sides of that thing. The Green Machine is humming. I think I can still hear Willow doing the Viking clap in his bathroom right now, which is impressive. I'm saying that is, that's all you can say. It's impressive. But the Green Machine is just flowing, and they're looking good. They're getting strong. We talked about it. I talked about it a week or two ago about, Sanders' origin. It just, I don't know. I'm just saying this right now. Do not be surprised, and I said they were going to make it, if the Raiders make the finals. That's right. I paused for effect right there. But they're looking really good. Dane Laurie getting the hat trick over his former team. This dude, I'm going to say something right now. I like Dane Laurie. But my God, for as slight of a guy as he is, how does he keep his head up with that gigantic mustache? It's impressive. I've got to say that right now. He's got the flowing locks, and then he's got that upper lip curtain that's got to weigh at least 2 to 3 pounds. And to be able to run as fast as he still can with that thing, it's impressive. But he gets a hat trick, and you could see after the game, he was quite happy to get one over the Tigers. But, man, the Tigers we're going to talk about them in the 40-20. This is a team that, I will talk about it in a second here. Bulldogs 18, Warriors 6, Critter returns, back in the 6 jersey. And the Dogs of War is doing what they need to do, and that is playing a strong defensive side. They are now making it difficult. When was the last time we saw the Waz held to 6 points? It's been a while. They just totally shut them down. And like I said, it was the first time I've seen, I didn't see tons of frustration from the New Zealand club, but they just didn't feel like they could get their foothold in it. They just seemed out of place. Impressive. The Bulldogs now, they're sitting 2 points outside the 8. And you could argue they're playing some of the best footy that we've seen them play all season by putting matches back-to-back together. They're getting stronger. And who knows? They've got enough talent. Big Billy Kickow's back. I think that's a huge, huge part of this team. But they're winning these matches. And I think we're going to find out going down to Melbourne this coming week if they can soundly beat the Melbourne Storm. And I know a lot of you are going to say, but, Melbourne is weaker and they've been weakened and they don't have money in there and all that type of stuff. But to go down and beat the Storm in Melbourne is a tough ask. And I'm really interested to see how the Bulldogs handle that, because if they roll right through Melbourne, this team is coming. And it'll be really, really fun to watch as they drag race the Green Machine to get into the finals, because those two teams right now are rocketing towards the finish line. Cowboys 18, Broncos 10. Whew, boy, I'm telling you something right now. How about that Queensland Derby, right? The Cows doing something that feels very, very good to them, and that is ending their bitter rivals season. That was a fun match, man. I really enjoy watching the Queensland Derby. I talk about this moment a lot, being in Adelaide in 2015, watching the grand final with Mrs. Shedadamus. And since that moment, I've always got up for watching these matches. But it lived up to it. That's why we're doing the deep dive about this game. But it lived up to everything that you hope that it does. And when you watch the trailers, when you watch the promos talking about the Queensland Derby and these two teams coming to play each other, you just get hyped. And the Cows came out and played like the team that had a point to prove. And like I said, we're going to talk about that in a second, but Cotter gets the Kyle Webb medal, so that was good. I'm saying he had a strong game, and it's good to kind of see him kind of get the aches and pains out after Origin and kind of getting back into his dominating type of play. But big victory, 18-10, and like I said, Broncos season now has been put to bed by their bitter rivals. Titans 38, Dragons 18. Big match for King Gutho, his 250th game. Unfortunately, Titans make it 2 in a row for the Dragons. The Red V they try. They really, really try. It was old boys weekend. They came out of the sheds. They looked somewhat strong. And then they just, all of a sudden, it seems like a different team comes out on the field and replaces some of those players, because Jaden Campbell, playing. I really, really enjoy watching Jaden Campbell play. He's getting better every week, too. The game is slowing down for him, which when you watch a half that is so important for their club or their side, when you start to see their raw talent come into a slower mentality. And what I mean by a slower mentality is there's not the yips. And the yips mean when you all of a sudden somebody breaks through the line or somebody comes from the side, you almost see the player freeze, almost that deer in headlights look. But instead, that smooth silkiness comes out where they might slide left, slide right, maybe throw a cutout pass or throw a dummy. And Campbell's had that in his game, but you watch it more and more. And the other thing that I can't stress this enough. I know we know that all these guys play with injuries, all right? We're in round 21. We just finished round 21. Every single one of these guys is carrying some type of niggle with them right now. Unless they might have just come back from an injury where they're healthy or as healthy as you possibly can be. And Jaden Campbell has played injured a lot in his career, right? He's not the biggest of guys. I think this might be the most healthy we've seen him play also. And I think that's a huge contributing factor to why we're watching him really. And I think he's got a Habs partner that he's really, really confident with too, because it's been a revolving door and musical chairs there in the Habs for Gold Coast. But I'm really excited for this young man because, Mrs. Shedadamus and I have a picture with him, and we went up to Gold Coast as guests for the Frizzell family. And meeting him in the sheds, he was still getting some of his tattoos, and he was showing me his Michael Jordan tattoo he's got on his on the inside of his forearm. And just a really nice young man. And it's really nice to see some of the good guys really their careers start to flourish. And that's what we're seeing with him. And he played a great game, and I'm starting to see when he plays well, so do the Titans. And this is, this team I think is going to finish the season very, very strong. And that's going to have a lot of people buzzing going into Vegas next year. But big victory for them. Too bad King Gutho does not get the victory in his 250th game. But, hey, it happens. And Gutho's been around long enough to know you don't always get the victory in the milestone games. Sharks 48, Sea Eagles 12, Nico Hynes. That's all you really need to say. I probably could stop talking about this game after just saying those two words. Nico Hynes, another stellar performance. I said this before. Don't forget, your Shedadamus picked Panthers, Sharks at the beginning of the season to play in the grand final. But I said for that to happen, Nico Hynes is going to have to get back to his running best. And let alone his running best. The guy's got a gold boot right now because he's not missed. What is he, 23 for the last 23 or 25 for his last 25? Just incredible numbers with his kicking. And what was this? Just 2-3 weeks ago, everybody was saying this is Tricky's team, right? And I'm not saying that Tricky's game has fallen off whatsoever. But let's be honest. Just looking at the two guys standing side by side, one of them looks like a Ferrari. One of them looks like he might be kind of a Ute. And what I mean by that is Nico Hynes is an athlete. He's a special type of athlete. And he's just had, he just hasn't lived up to his Dally M season, really. He's just kind of been up and down. Hey, happy wife, happy life. And I know he's not married yet, but it's really kind of strange when you start seeing some of these younger guys or some of these guys as they start to mature and grow a little bit older and they start getting a solid family foundation or they find that partner that they've, not had and the stability it brings into their lives. Nico's happy. And that is something, if you know his story, if you know his history, he's had problems in the past with trying to stay on track mental health-wise. And hey, all of us have been there, even if it's just a tiny bit at times before. And when you have somebody that all of a sudden now you feel like you're not on this journey alone, that makes you a better person every day, no matter who that is, it changes you. It changes you. And I think that's what we're seeing with Nico. There's a confidence, there's a swagger back into him. He was answering questions on Sunday night with Matty Johns, and Fletch was kind of messing with him, asking him about the wedding and all. And even Nico, you could just see the way that he answered the questions. He was just seasoned. Like it was, he had fun with Fletch, but it was kind of like, okay, move it along. Like there's a confidence about this young man that is really starting to come through with Nico, and that's a great thing for the Sharks. I'm saying they went to the northern beaches, and I wasn't joking when I said this earlier. They put TNT dynamite underneath the stadium and blew up Brookvale Oval. That's right. Fortress Brookvale is in shambles right now, and it does not happen often that a team comes in and does that to Manly on their sacred soil. But it wasn't even close. And now you've got a team with Manly that is struggling, and they're in a fight because they're in a fight against two teams that are coming for them in the Raiders and the Bulldogs, and they've got to start playing better football, or they're going to find themselves outside the 8. And this is a team just a few weeks ago, Fozzball. They were playing incredible defense. They had their strike back. And people were talking about them being a top 4 side. And it just is, like I said, this is why coaches don't keep their hair color and don't keep hair on top of their head for long. Nothing against you, Coach Strange, for the Roosters. But what I'm saying is it's not an easy gig. And Kieran has now got to try to find his way to get this club back going the right direction. But I knew they were in trouble when I looked at the round 21 matchups. I'm like, uh-oh, because that was an on fire Sharks club. That was a mad Jaws without Richard Dreyfuss looking for a bigger boat. Okay, yeah, I know Brody said it. Leave me alone, shedheads. But yeah, big victory for the Sharkies, and like I said, Nico Hynes. Man, double thumbs up to you because I've enjoyed watching him for the last few weeks, and his game is just so strong again. So congratulations to the Sharks. Oh yeah, and what can you say? Ronaldo getting a double. What can you say about that? You got to talk about the mouth of the teal and the teal and black. Anyway, let's go forward. Let's go this deeper dive because I'm going to say a quote right now from last week. And buckle up when I say this, shedheads. Everyone north of Brisbane hates the Broncos. Let that settle for a second. Let it marinate. And let's go into this. Because, shedheads, with that bold statement, the Cows and their coach, Toddy Payton, put out a rallying cry. And it was heard all through the NRL. Because now the question was, wait a second, the people north really hate the Broncos? And what Todd Payton did, and what was so brilliant about that, he took all of the nuclear energy that is sometimes thrown at little brother, meaning North Queensland. He took all the pressure off of the Cows players and it went right on his shoulders. Why would Todd Payton say that? What's going on? What's going on? Because that type of fiery rhetoric made the bullseye back on him, and it fired his boys up. It fired his team up. And like I said, it was a masterclass stroke of genius. And I'm going to say this right now. I've been a big Todd Payton fan. Don't forget, he played on that 2005 Tigers team, right? He had a lot more hair on his head, but he played on that team. I've been a fan of him since he was the Wasp coach. There's just a quiet cool about this guy. And I like him. I do. I really, really like him. But you don't hear him say that type of stuff often, right? He doesn't really try to stir stuff up and get in the mix and poke people in the ribs. But he did it. And his team came out with that same type of, I don't want to say menace, but it was just this undercurrent of, okay, let's go. And from the opening kickoff, as they flew down the field, they came to inflict violence. Those first hit-ups and tackles really set a precedent to me on the whole rest of that game. And it wasn't that Brisbane wasn't there to play, but the aggression level was dialed up to 10. The violence of action, it was intense. And if you know the game at all, I sat there and I watched that. And I'm like, holy cow, this is going to be one of those games. And we got it. We got everything that we were hoping for. All of the previews that we got for the Queensland Derby, the great commercials and promos. In the first 15 seconds of that game, we knew we were going to be in for something. Because you knew the Broncos with everything on the line for them, everything, their entire season, they had to win out. They weren't going to back down. No Madge McGuire team is going to back down from a fight. They may not win it. They may go down. Adam Reynolds might blow something out, but they're going to fight. And they're going to leave it on the line. And the Cows were ready for it. So I knew instantly that was going to be a special game. And then you look at the Brisbane Broncos, a team that just never, how do I even say that? They're almost like that train set that you have, right? A beautiful engine. You got that thing cranked up. It's flying around the track. But for whatever reason, one of those wheels is off. And every time you start getting it up to a good speed, it derails. And then you try to straighten it, and then it's off alignment. And that's kind of what the season's been like for the Broncos. And after that on-point performance that they had against the Penrith Panthers, them knowing what their quote-unquote future needed to look like with them winning out, you just didn't know what you were going to get, but you knew this team was a healthy team. You only have 6 more rounds left of Payton Haas. You want to go out with a bang. You want to try to defend your title, all that type of stuff. We knew that the Broncos were going to bring it. And that's why, like I said, why it was so impressive right out of the gate, right out of the box, that the Cows matched fury with fury. And that's what we got. Unfortunately for Brisbane, and we'll say this again, unfortunately, it turned into a microcosm of the 2026 season. This game did. Because they got themselves behind early. And listen, you can only do a player, quote unquote, Reese Walsh, in a Batman outfit, Superman cape, whatever you want to say, so many times. And when they were down 14-4 at half, the Broncos, with the season on the line, you could just feel the pressure mounting for the Broncos. I don't know how do you describe it, but you could just see on television the looks on players' faces. And to me, the only release of pressure in that entire second half was when Billy Walters ran out on the field. And I swear, there was ovations from the Queensland, the Cows fans too, the North Queensland fans. Because I think everybody knows it almost been a year since his injury. And to watch Billy Walters run out on the field, a player that I think is one of the most respected players in the game. He's not an all-star by any means, but he works hard for everything that he gets. And I even gave a big smile and a thumbs up when I saw him running out in the field. But that was it. That was the only type of release that you could kind of feel in the entire second half for the Brisbane Broncos. The Reese Walsh magic that I think everybody was hoping that they were going to see, that we saw carry them to the title last year, it just wasn't there. It wasn't there. And you started to see Reese press a little bit, made a couple errors, and that all comes from pressure. That all comes from thinking that you've got to put the team on your back. And as well as it worked for him last week against the Panthers, that's what some guys were saying. For a team to have to do that for 6 straight weeks, it's impossible in this type of game that we're watching right now. That's why you cannot lose 6, 7, 8, 9 matches in a row and still hope to try to make the finals, because it's too tough of a game to get that far in the standings to try to make a run, to get all the way back, try to get in the top 4, because we know how important that is to actually win the title. And he just couldn't do it. He just couldn't carry it himself, which he shouldn't have to, Shedheads. Reese Walsh has done so much for that club. He shouldn't have to be Superman day in, day out, week in and week out. And he just didn't have it. Never materialized for him. Then there was the huge fumbling that Ezra Mam had. And a lot of people still point to this as being the moment that everything changed. Come on, you're playing 80 minutes. It's more than just one moment. And I'm not going to crucify Ezra, because that was a bang-bang play. But a guy with the skill and talent that Ezra Mam has, you expect him to grab that ball to finish that tryout. And that was it. That was, to me, the last moment that the Broncos really had a chance of trying to get back, get on top of that thing, and kind of ride it out. Because when Ezra dropped that, it just was kind of like you just heard all the air leave the balloon. And that, that kind of was, to me, the whole microcosm of their season. Just a few fumbles here, and it just never could get to the flow like we saw them at the end of last season. Now, as we turn the page on that, without Tommy Dearden in the lineup, the Cows had to dig deep. We know that. We know what Dearden means to that club. He is special, and when he's in the halves, that team is different. But I said this last week. I thought that was a major error by Todd Payton not playing Jake Clifford in the halves, even with Dearden back. I just think that team, I know that this Jackson Purdue trying to get him in the halves, is something, I don't know what it is. Just like I still never understand why Scott Drinkwater is not going to be playing with this team next year. But I'm not going into that again. But Jake Clifford is important. And I don't know if people know how important Jake Clifford is, because he is not, like I said, a Lamborghini sports car sitting in your parking lot. But he's got a lot of skill. He's got, and reasserting him back in the lineup to me was everything, because he came and paid it off in spades. Getting a try, kicking for 616 meters. This team is just different with him in there. And that's why, I know Todd Payton is at ground zero day in and day out with this club. And I don't know what it is about Jake Clifford, why sometimes I feel like there's a hesitation of playing him. I think he's done enough to be in that lineup every week and every game now. But Cliff came in, he took care of business. He's going to be needed, because with Tommy Dearden out now, and not really a timetable, I don't think, really been put on when his return's going to be, Clifford's going to have to play some really, really good footy. And he's going to have to an extent, carry this club going forward if the Cows are going to do the damage I think they possibly can do. And then there's Jason Tamalolo. He continued his Phoenix-like rebirth, and it's fun to watch. I still remember that year when they went to the finals, and it was him and Michael Morgan, pretty much, Tay-Marie Martin, and they just drove the Cows, a team that no one was expecting to make it to the finals. They made it all the way to the finals, and that's what this guy looks like again. I think we have to go back and also say something else that I wasn't going to even mention. Todd Payton resting him and not just running the brakes off him and frustrating him by pulling him off the field, letting him rest. I think the backside of his career is paying off big time, because the bruising runner that Jason Tamalolo is, he would not be able to do this if Todd Payton would have run him 60 minutes a game through this entire tenure there. He'd be broken down by this point. I'm saying he's a battering ram. But I'm telling you, he was 16 rushes for 195 meters. That's a big boy doing that. And he just continues to look like he's getting stronger and stronger and stronger, because in that game, every gritty run they needed, he took the ball and ran with it, which was impressive by a lot. Now, the Cows are now sitting in 8th after last week with 26 points. That's 2 points ahead of the Dogs and also 2 points out of 5th place. So they're right there in that kind of, that slipstream where if they hit that wind current, they could blow right out of the back end, or they could ride it right into a top 5 position or being in 5th. That's why this weekend's matchup against the Chooks is going to be it's going to be monumental. One of the things that makes it really fun is the Chooks are going up to Townsville. So they're going to have that Queensland, North Queensland fan base behind them. That the temperatures are going to be a little bit warmer. I cannot believe what it is. It's perfect ingredients to be the match of the round. I know we've got the rematch in Mudgee also on the list this weekend, but I think this game is going to rival that in just excitement and ferocity all the way around. But I'll say this right now. Get your popcorn and your XXX Gold ready, because we're in a matter of hours, I think we're going to see something special in Townsville. So great match that we got to see in the Queensland Derby. And like I said, you got to love matches that has consequences. And we definitely got consequences out of this last matchup. Now, Shedheads, I also said last week that match of the round was going to be the Knights and the Chooks. And that, by every means, lived up to it as well. We got everything in that game. It was a tooth-and-nail battle until DC slaughtered it and pretty much ended that thing. How should I say that? He closed the bar down with that right foot. But I don't think any of us are going to remember, nothing against DC and his, once again, clutch kicking. But this game is going to be, unfortunately, remembered for what it's going to cost the Newcastle Knights. And unfortunately for me, it's going to cost the Newcastle Knights probably their aspirations of really doing a lot of damage and destruction in the finals. I'm not saying they will not make the finals. I think they're going to have to fight like hell to get into the finals and to stay right now in the top 8. But everything changed when Dylan Lucas and Dylan Brown went down. And, Dylan Lucas has had a breakout season. You'd have to say, he got an Origin call-up. He has been living a charmed life this season in the Hunter. And then Dylan Brown has been under such scrutiny since he signed the 10-year deal coming up from the Eels. A lot of people is like, I don't know, man. Dylan Brown can't play in the 7. What do you think? He's a conductor? And by every means, he's been that. So these are just two huge gut punches for the Knights. And I don't know if they have what it takes to get them through this, because it's an ACL for Dylan Brown, and it's that gruesome ankle injury for Dylan Lucas. So we will not see these guys back, and we're not going to see either one of them probably back. For sure, not Dylan Brown until probably the middle of next season. So unfortunately for them, it's going to come down to a couple things. Now, one of the positives is they've got Kalen Ponga, Dane Gagai, and Jermaine McEwen coming back this round. So that is at least one positive for this club. But even with those 3 guys back, this is all going to come down, and the rest of the season and the future, the future going to the way that everybody would like to see it go if you're a Newcastle fan, all is going to rest on the shoulders of that halves combination of Fletcher Sharp and Sandon Smith. It's no secret. For you to have a strong, deep run into the finals, you've got to have strong halves play. You have to. And when you have 2 guys that have played a little bit together, that's one thing. But to play a little bit together and to play in finals footy is 2 different things. And that's why I'm really worried for the Newcastle Knights. And it's deeply concerning. Sandon Smith has played consistent ball all season when he's been in. And everybody loves Fletcher Sharp. And not just the flow on top of his head either. I think he's got strike playing from the fullback position. And I think when he gets enough games underneath his belt, he's going to be a really, really good half. But it's different saying guys have a lot of potential and guys having to do it right now, because everything is going to rest on these guys' shoulders. And I know, speaking of guys that wear capes, Kalen Ponga can wear a cape too and be a superhero. But KP's coming back off of an injury right now. These guys are going to have to hold their weight. And it's going to be interesting to see. I think all of us are very, very much interested to see what happens. But the problem for Newcastle isn't just that you've now got to make the finals. You've got 5 more games remaining, and it's the murderer's row of a schedule that they've got to get through. It it isn't going to be easy. And I'm saying it wouldn't be easy if they still had Dylan Brown. So that's why I'm really concerned. And I got to say this right now to all my listeners who are in the Hunter. I'm hoping, and I've got my fingers crossed, that you guys make it through and get into the finals this year, because what a gut punch it would be if Newcastle, after the season they've had, find a way to kind of sputter home and miss the finals. It would be a heartbreak. And listen, for somebody who doesn't have a dog in the fight, it's heartbreaking for me, because Newcastle has played some of the most exciting football we've seen all season, but from any club. And for them not to get in there, you really, Justin Holbrook's got a really good chance for winning Coach of the Year honors at the end of the year. So here's to keeping our fingers crossed that Newcastle can find a way to right the ship and to ride out these troubled waters. But man, that was really tough to watch, seeing both those guys go down and Newcastle's season be put on the brink. Now, as we go into the 40-20 Shedheads, you guys all know I have a special place in my heart for the West Tigers. Unfortunately, I will admit to you right now that I'm getting tired of covering jungle drama. Jungle drama. Let's just go into some. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. We just will say, you guys know what I'm talking about when I use the term jungle drama. I am so ready to start covering a Tigers club when we're starting to talk about wins and losses, guys up for gun of the round, back-to-back stellar performances. And it almost seems like another lifetime ago when the Tigers were flowing at the beginning of the season, doesn't it? Like, it's almost like, was that a dream that we were having a few rounds ago, halfway through the season ago? That's what it feels like. It doesn't even feel like it's the same season. But after the injuries that's kind of crept into this team and inside this locker room, this team could never. And right when they started getting out of the injury woes, you had the Jerome Luai situation with PNG, and it's just been bad. It's been bad. And every time you flip it on some type of rugby league show, they're talking about more drama happening at the West Tigers. It is frustrating. It is very, very, very frustrating. And right now, the drama for the West Tigers, as all of you know, the epicenter is centering around Adam Doueihi. And what's crazy about this for me is Adam Doueihi has never been that guy that ever has come off as being a drama king, or a guy that disrupts his team, or a guy that, says stuff out of the side of his mouth, or, he's just not that guy that you think of that has that around him. And there's some guys in this league that are a pain in the you-know-what, but thank God for their talent level, because it makes a lot of people look past of how much of a pain in the you-know-what they are. Now, for Adam, I can understand his frustration. He goes to judiciary, gets off on that, and then gets greeted by Benji and the coaching staff, who ask him to play lock, right, against the Raiders. They want to blood in a new young half. You want to put him in there with Jerome Luai. And that's a little strange for me, because you would kind of think that Dewey's going to be with the team next year. Why wouldn't you, put this young new half with Adam Doueihi? Because I guess that's maybe one of the chances we've got of seeing next season with the West Tigers is Doueihi with this guy, right? But instead, Benji goes with Luai and the new young half. But Dewey's reaction of saying, fine, I don't want to play lock. I'm not going to play this week. I need to get away. You can't do that. And you can't do it because Adam Doueihi didn't have a leg to stand on that. The Tigers' offense has been abysmal. And let me use that term again. It's been abysmal the last few weeks. It's just, they can't score a try unless there's a fluke that happens, right? They get close to the goal line, the try line, and it's like they've never played the game before. The guys, it's really ugly. So Adam Doueihi getting upset, he can't. And you've got to give an offense that's struggling as many possibilities, as many combinations as possible to try to get that thing going. I do feel for the guy, but the crazy thing about it is you hear a lot of guys that know the game, Matty Johns, Gordon Tallis, people that have played the game have said they think Adam Doueihi would be a really good 13. They kind of think of him in the Isaiah Yo model and mold. Big, long, sinewy, can just take the hard yards when he needs to, very, very quick to read the line, that type of a player, right? He's got that potential to play that way. But to go that I'm not going to play, you can never do that. You can never refuse to stand with your brothers and play for your club. You just can't do it. And that's not just an NRL thing. That is any type of sport. Because what you're doing with that is you're quitting on your side. And to me that is, and if you've never played sports before, that's like coming home to your spouse, your significant other that needs you, and you're saying, yeah, I'm not doing that. I just can't do that today. I can't get my mind around doing that right now. I'm sorry. I'm upset with you. I'm not doing it. When they really need you. You can't do that. You can't do that. You can't quit on the people that mean the most to you, right? And for a professional athlete, that's your squad. That's your squad. And then when they go out there, when you don't play with them, and they get flogged, and let me use that term again. There's another term, flogged, meaning beat down in the streets to the Canberra Raiders. How do you come back from that? Because you left your boys. You left your team. You left your family. You cannot do that. Now, I got to admit to you, when the weekend ended, I knew there was a lot of stuff going to come out. The Benji and the team and Adam Doueihi were all going to come together to try to iron this thing out. And nobody knew what it was going to look like. Was Adam Doueihi going to get back in a car and ride off in the sunset saying he was never going to put on a Tigers jersey again? Was Benji going to send him down a New South Wales Cup? What was going to happen? And then all of a sudden, it's business as usual at the Tigers? What? Wait a second. What? You're just, all of a sudden, Adam Doueihi's back at the 7. Okay, well, wait, what? No punishment about it whatsoever. And I'm looking and going, all right, you know how guys feel when somebody quits on them. You know how that significant other feels if you quit on them. But all of a sudden, you look on the team sheet for this coming weekend against the Eels, and Adam Doueihi is back at the 7, like nothing happened. And I know Adam Doueihi's been one of the few bright spots this season for the West Tigers. I know this. But not to make him earn his way back into the side sends such a horrible message for me. It just, I almost can't even put into words. My job is to talk to you guys. But you've got to earn back that jersey. That's just not a given. This isn't a guy that is one of the top 8 players in the league that can pretty much walk on water just because he's like, yeah, that's what I do. That's not Adam Doueihi. And it's nothing against Adam Doueihi. But you just wonder, how do you not make him earn back his place? What happened to Benji Marshall's hard line in the sand? Like, don't let the door hit you in the you-know-what. What happened to that? Because for me, when you start saying the stuff like Benji said right there, drawing a hard line, and it means something to play for this club, all of that type of stuff, and then all of a sudden Adam Doueihi apologizes, says he got it wrong, should never quit on his teammates. Well, that's great. That's what you want to hear. But you don't just get to slot back in there. You don't just get to come right back in there and all of a sudden say, "Hi guys, I'm back." Yeah, are we getting a few brews out? No, you don't get that, because that's a privilege, and you quit on him. You cannot just walk back in the door. But that's what's going on. And I'll tell you something right now, Shedheads. It's going to be interesting to see. But I want to say another thing about this whole crazy situation. And that is, and I said I wasn't going to say his name on this show again, Isaac Moses. Now, the crazy thing about Adam Doueihi is he, even in his press conference, even made a point to try to deter anybody from bringing Isaac Moses' name back up. This has nothing to do with Isaac Moses. This has nothing to do with... All right, let me ask you a question. Isaac Moses has scuttled more players for the West Tigers than I think the bubonic plague did to Europe. All right, and what I mean by that is there have been more guys he has found a way to get out of the West Tigers than I can think of any agent that has done to any other club before, right? If I'm the West Tigers and I look at a guy that's coming up through the ranks and I look at who his representation is, if it's got Isaac Moses linked to him, I'm not dealing with you. And listen, Isaac Moses, I don't know you. You want to call me? Send me a message. But what I'm saying is, you are kind of a scarlet letter for the West Tigers. Well, you know, we only have to go back a year to the whole Lachlan Galvin situation, right? So, I know what Adam Doueihi said, and I don't know if this is an angle. Like, we never really ever got definitive, I was mad at Benji, I don't think this club is going the right direction. You just kind of heard mumblings like, I don't like some things that are going on. I don't want to play. And now he's saying, oh yeah, I'll play any position that Benji wants me to play. Well, where was that type of dexterity and flexibility last week? That's to me what makes me go, the scarlet letters here. Because don't forget, Isaac Moses' name gets dropped into the equation. Can't prove it. But like I said, there's a lot of fires going around this world right now, and usually where there's smoke, there's some flames underneath it a little bit. All right? Now, I'll tell you this right now. None of us know what the future of Adam Doueihi is going to be at the West Tigers. We don't know if this is just his last 6 games and, he'll be out the door. We don't know if he's going to honor, and he made sure he pointed out that he is not somebody who goes against his contract. He honors his contract, right? All right, okay, that's cool. So you're going to honor your contract, I guess. Or does he end up in a place next season like the Perth Bears? None of us know what the future holds, but I'll say one thing right now. The Tigers have 5 games left. And I don't know, has there been a more pivotal time in the Benji Marshall era than these next 5 games? And it starts off with the team that's taking Jerome Luai next year. The Parramatta Eels. I think when we look back at these 5 weeks, these 5 games that are coming out for the West Tigers, I think it will go down in history. Their performance will be either Benji surviving and thriving with this club going forward, or it'll be the beginning of the end. And this is all on the players' back. And I'll say this right now. Benji is doing what he has to do. He's coaching this team. He's trying to get these boys to have a little bit of pride in their jersey, to play hard from the opening whistle to the end of the game. But it's up to the players. It's up to the players to go out there and perform on the field. Because Benji isn't doing any goose steps and no-look passes out there. He probably could do it still. But he's not. So it's up to this playing group. And this playing group is going to show all of us if they're all on the bus or if they're not on the bus, right? And I know that's a hard terminology and saying if you're a West Tigers fan. But they're going to show us what they think, what they feel. So, going to be, once again, the world of rugby league never sleeps. So get ready to finish round 22 by seeing if the West Tigers have righted the ship or if they go down to their dreaded enemies, the Parramatta Eels. And I will be watching. I will be watching. Now, Shedheads, we're 2 days away from revisiting the Miracle in Mudgee. And I cannot take my eyes off the TV this week as they continue to show clips and highlights from that game. First off, it's strange to see Nathan Cleary in a helmet, right? That's always strange to see. Secondly, when was the last time the Iceman hit the post like that? The ending of that game to this day still might be one of the few times, besides when Cleary took over the grand final and single-handedly brought the Panthers back to beat the Broncos. That might be the only other time that I've jumped out of my seat like that. Than when, the Green Machine took it coast to coast to win that match. It was one of those matches you'll never forget if you watched it. And I'm going to say something. It's a magical match. But as we go into another Raiders-Panthers showdown in Mudgee, and I really want to go up to Mudgee. I think there's a zoo in Mudgee that me and Mrs. Shedadamus want to go visit. But the crazy news coming out a couple days before this match is that Ivan Cleary has swung the axe and replaced Blaise Talungi in the halves for veteran Jack Cogger. Now, for one, I like Jack Cogger. I think Jack Cogger has a lot of game. I think he's got a lot of skill. I don't think it ever was put into full fruition, or I don't think a lot of people got to see it with his big move to Newcastle. But he is a Panther to me through and through. He knows Nathan Cleary's game. He's played his best games in the Panthers black and pink. He just gets it. He understands it. He's seamless for that team. But Blaise Talungi's a special cat too. I said weeks ago that I thought this was going to be the second half of the season was going to be his breakout. The problem is for Blaise is the defense wins championships. And his defense has not been on point. It hasn't been anywhere close to where it needs to be. And he's made a side of the field very, very weak. And Ivan Cleary knows to win everything, to do what this team needs to do, he's got to shore that up. And so he's done a tough call by swinging the axe and removing Blaise Talungi and replacing him. Now, I don't think any of us know if this is going to be a one-week trial. Is this a long-term move? But one thing that I think is going to really be a determining factor on this is this weekend. How does Cogger and Nathan play in the halves? Is it seamless? And how does that defense look with Cogger out there compared to Blaise Talungi? Because if Cogger goes out there and rocks it and he holds down his side, Blaise might be in trouble. And don't forget, Blaise is off contract. He can negotiate. And there's been a lot of rumblings that are the Eels looking to bring him back to Parramatta. So this is huge, but Mudgee is going to have a lot more riding on it than just 2 points. Because the future in the halves for the Penrith Panthers is going to be on display for all of us to watch. And listen, give me more drama for these big key matches like that. I love consequence, and we're going to get a lot of consequences from this showdown because the Green Machine are coming. And I cannot wait to give you my pick. And as we go into that, let's go into the picks for round 22, where we all kick it off up in Townsville with the Roosters versus the Cows. Toddy Payton. Has Todd got to the mic and said nobody likes the Roosters south of Wyoming? Has anybody heard? Has he said that? Okay, he might not have, but hey, give me more Todd Payton trash talk, and I'll take that any day of the week. But I'm going to say this right now. I'm going with the Cows. I know that it's strange, but I think this team playing up in Townsville, they're going to get the Roosters. And well, let's be honest. The Chooks have not really just blown people out. They've not had just stellar performances. If it wasn't for Teddy, again, like I said, standing on his head against the Knights, even with their injuries, the Roosters don't win that match. So I'm going with the Cowboys. I'm on the yeehaw. We're going to see, but here's the cool thing. We're going to see some tries. This is going to be an offensive game. So I can't wait for that. But I'm going with the Cows. I think that they're going to find a way. Listen, Drinky gets up for playing other big halfbacks. And he's got back-to-back weeks of playing Reese Walsh and James Tedesco. Drinky will be up for this match. I've got the Cows over the Roosters. Friday, kicking it off, Dolphins versus the Dragons. I guess the biggest news about this game is that, Cody Nicarima signed a 2-year deal, so he is leaving the Dolphins, and he's signed with the Dragons. So the Dragons get another big key signing. I don't know how this is going to all work with their 2027 spine, but big move, kind of sad, because I really liked him playing for the Dolphins. But hey, it's the game of rugby league. But he's not playing for he's not playing for the Dragons yet. I've got the Dolphins over the Dragons. And then Friday, we get the Bulldogs versus the Storm down in Melbourne. I know all the money goes one way. It all looks to me like the Bulldogs should ride this one out. But something tells me something right now. I'm going with Bellyache. I think Bellyache and the Storm pull the upset off, and they get the Dogs. They take it to the kennel. I'm going with the Storm pulling the upset in the late game on Friday. Saturday, boy, we've got another good triple header. Starting off, Warriors and Titans. We know the Titans. I think at one time the Titans had won 3 or 4 in a row against the Waz in New Zealand. I know this game is up in the Gold Coast, but my problem for the Titans, even though they've won 2 in a row, is the Waz lost last week. If the Waz had beaten the Bulldogs last week, I would have thought they might have come into the Gold Coast riding on a high. Maybe they overlook the Titans. They're not going to be overlooking the Titans. They will not be overlooking the Titans. They are going to be ready to play. They're going to be ready to cause some damage. I got the Waz over the Titans. Raiders versus the Panthers. The Miracle in Mudgee. The game that we were talking about. Another great highlights game that we've been watching leading up into this weekend. And I'm going to say something right now. It's going to be interesting to see Cogger in the halves with Cleary. I'm going with the Green Machine. I'm going Ethan and Ethan. Ethan Sanders, Ethan Strange, let's go. I'm going with Team Ethan. I have the Raiders winning in Mudgee and beating the Panthers. And then finally, late game, Knights versus the Broncos to close out Super Saturday. Broncos have nothing to play for but pride. Knights have it all on the line. With those 3 key additions, I know Brown's out. I know Lucas is out. I'm still thinking the Kalen Ponga, Gagai going up against his future team. I've got the Knights beating the Broncos. I think it's going to be close, but I've got the Knights over the Broncos. Sunday, Rabbitohs versus the Sharks. Listen, if the Cronulla Sharks continue to play footy the way they have, this game could get ugly. And I know that Wayne Bennett has ways of getting his club and his team up, but the Sharks are a force of nature right now. I think it continues. Nico Hynes has another good game. I'm taking the Sharks over the Rabbitohs. And to close out round 22, Eels versus Tigers. Let's not. I'm going to do it. I said I would not do it again. I'm pulling the upset. I'm taking the Tigers, even with all the disarray that they've had. I'm taking them to show a spine, show a backbone, and to hit into this thing. I've got the Tigers winning a close match, but beating the blue and gold and getting the victory. Let's go over the picks again. We've got the Cows, the Dolphins, the Storm, the Waz, the Raiders, the Knights, the Shackies, and the Tigers. And my gun of the round, man, this was a battle between 2 guys. Teddy and the guy that I gave it to, Nico Hynes. Nico, some people say this is the best game Nico ever played. 1 try, 8 for 8 for conversions, 149 running meters, 3 line breaks, 2 line break assists, 2 try assists, 5 tackle breaks, 24 tackles made, 328 kicking meters. I need a drink after reading all those stats. That was a match. And again, we talked about Nico earlier. I don't think he's going anywhere. I think Nico's going to continue to play this type of footy the whole rest of the season. And the Sharkies are going to need him to do that as I stare at my dog shark toy on the floor right now. That's funny. But but I think he's going to keep it going. But incredible game by Nico Hynes to be the gun of the round. Shedheads, I hope you're ready. Like I said, as soon as you get finished listening to this podcast, find a way to buy yourself something to check your blood pressure. I don't need to lose any of you, but this is going to get dramatic for the last 5 rounds, whatever we've got to close this thing out. It's going to be fun. Make sure you hydrate. Have that arm strapped up just in case you start hitting 180 on a pulse. But like I said, Shedheads, in all honesty, have an incredible weekend. The footy's going to be great. Do a few push-ups between games. Just kind of keep that flexibility and keeping that heart rate going. But until next week, stay out of trouble. Don't get caught. You've been listening Outside the Sheds. I am still your Shedadamus, Corey Jackson. Until next week, see ya.
And that was another fantastic episode of Outside the Sheds with Corey Jackson, talking all things NRL and all things sports. So please remember to smash the subscribe button and share this with your family and friends and show them what Australian sport is all about.